Diversity in the gaming industry is something that the AGA has started to look at over the last few years in terms of how can we elevate our efforts across the industry. And, we have a great story to tell when you look at the headline, right? AGA conducted research last year that showed, across our membership and the broader industry, we have a more diverse workforce than the broader U.S. workforce, as well as the hospitality industry. But as you dig into that data a little bit, what you see is the higher you get up in the ladder, there's a bit of a drop off. We have a strong pipeline of talent, but once you get to the executive and C-suite level, we get a bit less diverse. And so that's a conversation we need to continue to focus on. And then when you look at the gender diversity side of things, we're about average. And I think there's opportunity for us to improve on that, given the great opportunities in gaming for women. That data underlies the importance of conversations like this, and the AGA is glad to have worked with Tammy Barlow and Kim Barker-Lee from Bally's to produce this conversation today. There's a Q&A you should be able to see on your screen. So if you have questions for the panel, please pop them in there, and as time allows, we'll address them. This webinar will be available on americangaming.org later today. If you want to share it with somebody, or you found it so engaging you want to rewatch it again. Without further ado, one more note. AGA is proud to present G2E this year in Las Vegas, and our call for content and speakers is open right now. The deadline is March 27th, and I bring that up here because we want to make sure we have a range of diverse audiences, and I imagine if you're dialed into this conversation, that might be, something you're interested in. So if you have a content idea, or you just want to offer your skills and expertise as a speaker, please submit that. You can go to globalgamingexpo.com for more details. But we're excited to bring diverse conversations and speakers to G2E this fall. So now, without further ado, let me turn it over to Anika Howard, the President and CEO of Wonder Nation.
Hello, everyone. This is a conversation that I've been looking forward to having all week. A little bit more. Wonder Nation is owned by the Mashantucket Pequot Tribal Nation. I'm also on the board of Global Gaming Women and a co-founder of African Americans in Gaming. And this year's theme for National Women's History Month is Women Who Advocate for Equity, Diversion, and Inclusion. And so I think this panel will have a wonderful time digging into that. This theme recognizes women throughout the country who understand that for a positive future, we need to eliminate the bias and discrimination entirely from our lives and our institutions. And so with that, as opposed to me telling you about the wonderful women on this panel, I'm going to open it up to them and start with a prompt to say, introduce yourself and what is your motto in life? I'd like to start with you, Fundi. What do you think?
Good afternoon or good evening in South Africa. It's 5:00 p.m. I'm so happy to join you, lovely ladies, I'm also in awe, Anika. I've been looking forward to this panel ever since I got approached for it. So I think it's going to be great fun and lots to share. So my name is Fundi Sithebe. In Zulu, it means the educated one, Fundiswa. And I am the CEO of a company called 4 Racing Limited. And we are basically responsible for horse racing and betting and broadcast operations in South Africa, and also expanding into parts of the rest of Africa. I also serve on the board of what's called the World Tote Association, which is a bunch of operators that are for the tote. And my previous life, I was in aviation, so I serve on the board of South African Airways, our national carrier. That's me in a nutshell. My motto is, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. Thanks.
I love it. And so I'm just going to go ahead and add this last prompt for you as well. So let's think, you're kind of winding everything down. If someone wanted to approach you and write your autobiography, what do you think the title would be?
I've battled with this because I actually do want to write a book at some stage just about my experiences of corporate in the different sectors I've been. So I think the one right now that springs to mind is a play on planes, trains, and automobiles. So it would be probably planes, horses, and gambling, something along those lines.
I love it. Thank you so much, Fundi. Rose, what about you? Same question. Just tell us about yourself, your motto in life, and kind of what your title would be if someone wrote an autobiography.
Well, good morning. Good morning to my fellow panelists and to you, and thank you all so much for this opportunity. Rose Hudson, I am currently president and CEO of the Louisiana Lottery Corporation. I have been in this role for 18 years now and been with the corporation for 24 years, but was also a part of the startup team. I was employee number 4 of the corporation, have spent the majority of my career either in sales or in public service, and background in human resources management. Currently, I also serve as the chair of our only freestanding women's hospital in the country, Women's Hospital in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and also serve on the board and holding company boards of a regional bank here. So kind of a whole diverse or wealth of experience, I would have, I think. Motto in life, I I have a T-shirt that I have worn probably for the past, I don't know, 25 or so years. It's a little threadbare, but each one teach one. And what our requirements are for each one of us to carry the message and uplift and look out for others. If I were to write my autobiography, years ago, probably when I first took this job, I went to give a speech, and when I asked I asked for directions. The gentleman on the phone told me to just turn right and go across the coulee. Well, a coulee is a South Louisiana thing. I had to look it up, but it's basically a ditch. And I was not very well received when I reached the destination. I think I did not look like they thought the CEO would look like. And so the across the coulee concept is about my great grandparents who I had the pleasure and the honor of knowing and spending time with. So it's their journey. It's the 40 acres and a mule. It's my parents. It's my dad trying to get from North Louisiana to South Louisiana to college. And all of that has kind of brought me over. So that would be the title.
I mean, I love it. I love everything, both Fundi and Rose. And so, Demi, what about you? Tell us about you.
Good morning, ladies. I am incredibly honored, actually, to be a part of this panel. My name is Demi Adebowale. I am the director of casino operations here at Borgata Hotel and Spa. Been doing this in this business for about 20 years or so. I really, really enjoy what I do. I think that if I were to, because it involves, right? So if I were to say what my motto currently is in this stage of my life, I would say that mistakes are part of the journey, that we should embrace it and not be scared of it. And then my book. I think my book in this stage again in my life is the evolution of a growing and thriving me. For so long, I was just surviving in this business. So I love the fact that I'm able to grow and thrive now.
No, I mean, I love this whole theme about it because I really feel that especially coming into this role and coming into these opportunities, we have this duality of who we are as a person, the things that innately drive and motivate us, and then kind of who we show up and what we need to be for the role that we play at work. And sometimes they blend, but in many cases, they are this distinct identity between family, community, mission, what kind of corely drives us, and then kind of what are the works that we do and that we need to do to fulfill our commitment to the organizations that we're part of. And so I'm going to take another step a little bit back to kind of switch gears and talk about who inspired you and who you've advocated for. So when we kind of think about to the first time you remember meeting a woman outside of your family that inspired you, can you talk about that experience and who that person was? Rose, maybe we can start with you.
Sure, happy to. And it's unfortunate, but that first person came into my life pretty late into my career. And I say probably my third professional role. And so all of the mistakes that I had made, the missteps became glaringly apparent when I met this woman. She was actually, we were thrown together in a supervisor role. She was my supervisor, but she became, I saw her as she knew how to walk, how to talk, how to manage, how to lead with empathy and inspiration. And she also knew how to handle the discrimination and the missteps of others with power and with a great deal of grace, and probably kept me from, you know, leading in those situations with anger and perhaps a different temperament. At 90 years old, and she's still in my life, and I still continue to learn so
Yes.
much from her. So I'm forever grateful for her role in my life. And it was probably, because that I didn't see anyone like her for so long. I was well into my late 20s, almost 30 years old, that I know my obligation, each one teach one, is to show up for people in their lives as a coach, counselor, mentor. So I was probably very in that same time frame that I started acting as in a formal mentoring capacity to young women, and still do this today, whether they are high school, going into college, or even in the college world, and then as those informal mentorships with lunch and conversation. So that's
And just another follow-up to that, was she the first person that advocated for you at work? Kind of first woman that you think, in addition to showing up, was the first woman that was your advocate, do you believe?
I think so. She was, what's interesting about advocating for people, as I've found, is that sometimes you may not know that someone is advocating for you. It's not the
Very true.
billboard, it's not somebody talking about it. So I have a great belief that she did advocate for me. And in some situations, even when I really almost wasn't ready, but
Yes.
she had the belief and the quiet support for me that got me ready. So yes.
Good. Fundi, what about you? What kind of talking about that first person outside of a woman in your family that you felt showed up for you?
Anika, I have to really think hard about this question, and not for the reason that I don't necessarily have a female that advocated for me, but it actually took me back to all the stages of my career. And I realized that for the longest of time, I've been working for probably around 25 years now, my entire career. And probably it was only in the last 3 years that I had a female or 3 females, and I'll talk about them advocating for me. And I realized that over the years, as I was growing, as I was changing, as I was developing into these different industries, it was always males that pushed me, that were there for me, that really opened up the doors. And you would think that it would be the other way around, but be that as it may, I'm still very, very grateful for them. And what I took out of that was I also had to be that woman that deliberately then advocates for others. So I think that was the lesson that I learned. But God being God, in the last 3 years, I've come across just 3 phenomenal women. We'll just call them Mary, Jess, and Emma, and they all work in my space right now. They, within the first hour of meeting me, decided that I was the choice CEO that they wanted to have. And since then, have backed me to the T, but have supported me. I always say, as women, our leadership style is different. And I've now also started learning around to be more vulnerable, So it's moments when I'm able to call them, and literally in a moment where I have tears coming out of my eyes because I just don't know if I'm doing the right thing. And so it's not only advocating for me, giving me the thumbs up, but just holding me as part of this journey, but also equally holding me accountable. So I think I've been blessed in the last 3 years. I'd like to think that I have advocated specifically, not necessarily for women as such in career, but the Black girl child. So I said in my previous position, I was in aviation, and many years ago, I had a pilot's license. And I, once again, just because I just wanted to challenge the status quo, I was just like, well, we can do it. It doesn't mean that I have to be a flight attendant. And what we did was we developed an organization of women, but we decided to go specific to the Black girl child, to say that it is possible for you to be a pilot, to be, something in aviation. And we had a lot of those young children that we mentored, that we took to camp. So I like to think that that journey started there, and it still continues. So yeah, that's my story in a nutshell.
No, I love it. And I love, like, who knew we had a pilot? So that's great. Demi, what about you? Like, kind of once again, prompt, what woman outside of your family kind of first inspired you, and kind of who advocated for you at work kind of in that experience? And I think, to Fundi, before we kind of turn it back over to me, I think a lot of times, because I look back when I was listening to you within my career as well, that my initial advocates were men, but I also feel that it's kind of a kind of almost by design, because that, I think we are the women that are coming up. There was a lack of women leadership and women in kind of those positions that could kind of the each one, reach one, teach one, pull back. And so I'm glad to see now we're seeing more women in kind of opportunities that they can. So, but Demi, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was actually going to say the same thing. As much like Fundi, my earliest advocates were men, and it was what was in the positions or who was in the positions at the time. But I will say the first female advocate, and one who inspires me to this day, I'm going to name her, is Jackie Grace. She was and is such a consummate professional. I love the way that she leads. Yes, I love the way that she leads with empathy, and it doesn't matter what area in life I'm talking to her about. She's just very helpful overall for me. And like, when I think about the kind of leader I want to be, the kind of woman leader I want to be, I aspire to the way that she leads.
No, I absolutely agree. I'm a big fan of Jackie Grace, and just, the way that she shows up for everyone with her full heart and full intent. I love it. And so no, that's a great one to have. And so then, for each of you, Rose, I'll kind of start with you, and then Fundi, and then kind of back to you, Demi. Can you talk about the first time you remember paying it forward, taking that, saying that, okay, I'm in a position that I can help another woman, and that experience, and how that made you feel, and how that person is doing today, maybe?
Well, so, and I have to be careful, because she might be even on this webinar. But I'm just so proud of this individual, because it was a kind of a staging of a relationship in terms of an employee in the organization who really, I could see her potential and still see her great potential. And perhaps I saw it before she did, and was really, and I just trust and believe in what she could do. And so I just, this has been many years ago, I guess now, probably 12 years or so ago, but really had to be a little bit tough with the conversations that we had, with the end goal being your superstar. And so she has risen in the organization and has great potential, and I am still one of her biggest champions and advocate for her. I would say more, but I don't want to embarrass her or any others. But it's probably been that period of time, and the payoff for me, then how you can show up in the lives of others, women, particularly when there's not perfection there, if you will, but there's great opportunity.
So maybe just linking up with what Rose is saying. Similarly, I think for me, and this is just, utterly honest and open conversations, because you're literally in the rat race, you're in the corporate, and you're trying to just run so fast, so hard just to keep up with everybody. You hardly ever lift your head up, one, to acknowledge your accomplishments, but two, to see how you can advocate for others, or you can help build others until they reach out to you. So I must be honest, I wasn't necessarily proactive, but it was one lady, also in my current position, in my current organization, who just said, literally wrote me up an email, and I think she literally thought that I would never read her email because she was quite junior. And she started out by just saying that she's so in awe of my journey. She had taken the time to just read about where I've been, what I've done, and understand my vision for the organization. And she was like, she absolutely aligns with it. She sees herself becoming me in a couple of years. And that took me back. And I was like, oh, wow. Okay, so I actually am doing something good that people recognize. Because sometimes I think you're just in this rat race and you don't see that. And she requested a meeting, and we spent some time, and it was not only a meeting about how do I help you, but it was a meeting of me sharing my journey, sharing that it hasn't been an easy journey, and kind of just, giving the expectations of what this journey is going to look like. But she's since really developed herself she's playing in multiple roles in multiple divisions, and still has a long way to go, but that's part of our journey with her. And I'd like to see her grow and become something so much more than what she is, because I see it. So the irony is, I see in her what she probably doesn't see, the star that she can be, and she sees in me what probably for the longest of times I battled to see, that, hey, maybe I'm doing something right in this space.
And Demi?
I don't necessarily struggle with this one. I like to be impactful no matter what organization or property that I've been at. So my very first time, I think that I advocated for somebody was a young lady that was, and I know she's on the webcast, so I'm not going to say her name right now, but a young lady that was had worked for me at a property opening, and but what I recognized immediately from her was, like, she was so data driven and so analytical that was where her passion was. That's what she enjoyed doing. The people aspect of it, not so much. So we were able to kind of expose her to other departments. And, like, I had a vision in my head for her, but she also had something that she wanted to be exposed to. So between the two of us, we were able to get her into a different department that worked for her. She's still thriving in that department today. She's grown. I think she's one of the department managers now. I've since left that company, but she and I still keep in touch. But she was my very first person that I was like, no, we're going to get you where you need to be. And we're not going to let you fall through the cracks.
No, this whole kind of testimony here reminds me of a conversation I was having with my sister recently, and we were asking about superpowers, and she said something that I was like, yeah, that's a good one. She said that she wished her superpower was to be able to see, to show people how someone that loves and sees the potential in them sees them. So to be able to see yourself through someone else's eyes, or show that. And I thought, wow, because I think so many of us have an impact, but we're still struggling with that. We're our biggest critics, and in many cases, we're not recognizing the outsized impact that we have or can have. So I really like hearing this and hearing that journey. And so we're about almost at the 20-minute plus mark. So I want to change the topic just a little bit. So the topic of Women's History Month, or the theme, as we said, is women who advocate for equity, diversity, and inclusion. However, that has become, diversity has become a little bit of a dirty word. And after George Floyd's murder, at the height of the pandemic in 2020, it prompted, corporate America, gaming companies included, to really make lots of fervent promises about reforming the workplace, earmarking money, focusing on racial justice initiatives. However, 4 years later, kind of those commitments and diversity, equity, and inclusion in general are starting to come under fire. And so, kind of, what do you think is prompting the backlash, and how do you think that it's having the impact that it's having? And Rose, I think I'll go to you first.
Okay. And so I think that I'm seeing the backlash, but I think first of all, we have to, just kudos to where we are right now on this platform, because that keeps the message front and center and the conversation going. But I see the backlash almost as if the efforts and the language got co-opted by others who don't mean this work any good. And so we have allowed it to be co-opted. And that's unfortunate, because now trying to take the message back is a real struggle. But I see, let's say, for instance, I'm affiliated with a hospital. The American Hospital Association is doing fantastic work in terms of helping its member hospitals strategy map their way into some high quality, deep DE&I work. Here in Louisiana, we've got maternal fetal death issues that put us at the top in the nation. And so we've got to really be able to have these conversations with parents and reach our patient population through that diversity, equity, and inclusion work. In the gaming space and the lottery space, I think it's, you quoted, was quoted at the beginning of the webinar, what our workforce looks like. But as you ascend the ranks of leadership, we're very thin. I continue to be the only woman of color at the table with the leadership of lotteries, and that's unfortunate. And that can, and we are 2024, that cannot stand. The boards of some of these companies continue to look like people who do not look like me. And so that work continues. I see, my friend Kim Barker-Lee, fabulous. And it's important that, I know the casino industry stole her from the lottery industry, but it's really important that people like Kim are seen in roles of authority and power. So I see the Hospital Association perhaps as but one example of who's doing it well. But we, in our ancillary, in our lives, in our ancillary roles, have to continue to advocate for that in a larger and global scale.
And Fundi, I wanted to hear from you, because I know it feels like this DEI kind of conversation is definitely more kind of US centric, but I'd love to hear a different perspective.
So, Anika, if we had 2 hours, I'd love to break it down, but I'm going to try and summarize. So I think we are all very much aware of where South Africa has come from, and probably we're in 2024, 30 years into democracy. A lot still needs to be done. So what our government tried to do in 1994 was put forward rules, regulations, and laws around Black employment empowerment, or what's called BEE, right? And remember, ours is a little bit different because our population is 90% Black and probably about 10% white. Yet the 10% had the power over the 90% economically, democratically, etc. So it was a lot for the government to do, in a short space of time. Have we done it completely successfully? I think yes or no. Because I say yes because there's a few more of me in positions at the C-suite level. I, Rose, similar to you, I still walk into, whether it's gambling or horse racing operator meetings, and I'm the only Black female, yet there's 90% of the population is Black. You would think that the country had advanced to such a stage that what's in the boardroom matches the demographics of the country, but we haven't seen that. So the government really has tried from a regulatory perspective, to the extent that even licensees have got certain conditions imposed around ownership of businesses and ownership, so that we can try and get equality around just the economy. But I think there's certain places where it's failed, let's be honest, where it's just always been the few Black people that have gotten the bulk of the opportunities. We could do more to make it a lot more large scale. But I also think that it has to come from a will. It has to come from a place of, yes, you've got to enforce it. Yes, you've got to put in rules and regulations and make sure that you hold corporates accountable. But when it also doesn't come from a genuineness of people wanting to do it, that's where it starts to fall apart. And I find that within the South African space, and the same 3 women that I spoke about that advocated for me, made it a deliberate choice to have a Black female CEO, and they still support me till today. But if, in certain areas or in certain places, I could be kind of shoved to the side, people would probably, want that too. So it is a bit of it has to be a concerted effort across from both the diversified and not the diversified for it to be sustainable and impactful at the end of the day.
Yeah. And Demi, close us out. And then also, I mean, for you, I'd also like to know if you have any ideas or kind of people that you've seen that are doing, or companies you're seeing that are doing this well.
So I'll backtrack. So what I will say is, I think a lot of the backlash of this particular conversation is that there's this belief and perception that folks have moved on, right? So like we say these big words about what we're going to do, and we shout it out and say this is fixed and it's moved on, right? And that's just not the case. There's social injustices still happening in all communities. So it's more, for me, when I think about it, it's like we talked, right? But now we actually have to put in action. So in terms of that, like as a person of color, as a woman of color, like that's I think that's what the backlash is from my perspective. As far as who's doing it right, I'm not like a huge subject matter expert on that, right? But what I can say is, from the lens in which I sit and the company in which I work, we're very transparent in the initiatives that we have. There are many webinars and folks in positions that you could have a chat with. There are conversations that are happening daily that our employees are not only supportive of, but they're active in. So for me, that's where I see who is doing it right from my lens. We are very transparent. There's always room for growth and improvement, and that's never going to change as long as these things are an issue in our everyday life. But the idea that we continue to move forward, the idea that we are continuing to say, yeah, we made missteps here, but we're going to do this, and we're going to continue to move forward. We're going to continue to support you, and however we can help, we want to listen. I think for me, that's important.
No, I agree. And I have seen positive and forward movement in the casino industry on this. I remember now thinking back to last year for G2E, for the first time, they did have the business resource groups and had a lot of effort on, addition to the work that we were doing with African Americans in gaming. They had groups for a variety of other specific audiences. And I saw that being repeated this February at ICE. So I do see some of those things. And Fundi, I liked what you said, because I think it is everyone making a concerted effort. So not just kind of everyone preaching to the converted, but how do you make sure that you know, if you're a sponsor or your ally, that you're kind of making that effort to talk to people and have harder conversations to bridge the gap. And so now I know we're right at the halfway mark, so I want to spend the last part of it talking about just gaming and your experiences in gaming. I see a question that I will get to, so in the chat, but let's start with kind of the things that you love about it. So Demi, I'll stay on you. What do you feel like the best thing about working in gaming is, and what have been some of the highlight experiences for you?
What I love about the business is I'm never bored. Rat race is one thing, but like the idea that I'm constantly thinking, constantly evolving, strategizing, and growing as a person, I love. I can walk on the casino floor and talk to folks from different walks of life. I love listening to journeys of people. I love that they like what we've done on the floor. They like what promotion we have going on, or what disruptions that we have that is going on. That we thought about carpet and we thought about chairs. It's just the little things that I enjoy now about being in the business. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Thank you. And Rose, I mean, you're kind of been, just have a wonderful career in lottery. What are the things that really inspire you and drive you to press on?
Yeah, I still get up every day and enjoy this job in this industry. I guess one of the fun parts is I get to give away money, and so I do enjoy that. I love meeting our winners and finding out their hopes and dreams for their lives, and it's not kind of the stereotypical what you hear about our lottery winners. We've got working people, families who are just, bought a ticket or two and have want to send kids to college or grandchildren to college or purchase a home. So I really love that aspect of the job. But I also like the fact that we have a product, or we produce a product in terms of our scratch off tickets that can kind of highlight our state. We take opportunity to talk about Louisiana and what's great about Louisiana. I love meeting the folks from other states and working on our multi-state products with them. So there are many wonderful things about this job. You'd think after 18 years in and 24 in the industry, I might be a little tired, but I'm tired of people asking me, when am I going to retire?
Fundi, what about you? I mean, I think a woman racing pilot, lots of interesting intersections there. What brings you joy with this industry?
I think similar to what Demi was saying, the innovation and the continuous growth. So I was thrust into this industry. I've never been on a horse. I'd never been to a horse racing event. Neither had I actually gambled, right? So it was just all brand new. And now I've got an ownership in horses. I am starting to ride horses, and I play a little bit of betting. It's a little bit of gambling. I'm a bit of a punter, so that at least I understand what the customer is experiencing. I think it's very important. So from that aspect, I'm really enjoying purely the horse aspect of it. Just see the horse as an athlete, the jockey as an athlete. It's just really taken me up, because it's something that I'm a young girl from Soweto. You never understood that horses are just available to do such amazing things, and they're just such graceful creatures. So that's on the one hand. But I think the element of the industry is continuously growing, evolving, and globally, because horse racing globally is finding itself as not as exciting as it was 50 years ago. And we've still got to make sure that we grow our market, bring in it always confuses me, the Gen Zs, the Gen Xs, whatever it is. Bring in the younger audience into horse racing, but also sports betting. So we are kind of, as an organization, as for racing, trying to diversify our product portfolio, and also going to try hopefully play into the lottery space as well, Rose. So maybe I'll link up with you on that, just so that we are exciting, we are relevant to the market. And I think for me, that's been such great potential in learning. And I think there's also never any fear in saying that I'm learning. As a CEO, you don't know everything. So I love my team dynamic, and we literally on a daily basis are teaching each other new things, and we're growing together. So I'm absolutely enjoying it, and I'm hoping to see it rise to even higher levels.
Oh, great. So I'm going to stay on you again. So one of the things we talked about previously was just a hard lesson or hard truth or lesson that your experience has taught you. So, CEO, new industry, pilot, if you look back at some of the experiences that you've had, what are some of the lessons that you've learned that have stuck with you that you can share?
Yeah, part of my book as well. It's imposter syndrome. Let's be honest. The imposter syndrome, in that one, I think I sort of pushed myself at a very early age. I was COO of an airports company, managing 9 airports at the age of 37, right? Yeah. And whilst I knew the job, I deserved the job, I always doubted myself, because when you get into a boardroom and people that have been there for longer and people that don't look like me are just rattling off these things, and you think to yourself, oh, do I belong here? And that took me a while. And the reality, and I think my biggest lesson is, one, you've actually never fully learned. You continue to learn, embrace that. But two, your track record and who you are and what you bring to the table equally matters. So own it, live with it, develop with it, and lead with it. I think that's what's important. And just do it with humility. So that's been my biggest lesson, that Black girl, you belong.
Yes. Yes. To me, I see you shaking your head. What about you? What is that lesson?
It's, you know what, I think that at any parts of our life, we could all say the imposter syndrome is the one that like really sticks with it, or sticks with you, I should say. And for me, in that aspect, it's staying in failure. Like whenever I don't succeed at something, which is hard for me, I stay in it because I want to dig it. I want to know why. I want to know what was the mistake. I don't necessarily always turn the corner and move on quickly. So that was my hardest lesson / truth. But knowing that if I'm staying in that space and then that spirit, like I'm actually not learning anything, because now I'm just like, I'm laser focused on where it went wrong and not necessarily where it went right, or what could I have done differently? Who could I have brought in to help me out? Asking for help was also something that was very big, that I still continue to struggle with even today. But I would say my hardest lesson is that imposter syndrome and staying in failure.
No, and I think that's a really part. And my father also always used to tell me that, there's no need to admire the problem, just fix it.
So true.
So Rose, what about you?
That is such a Fundi and Demi for kudos, because the vulnerability of talking about that imposter syndrome is huge. And it really, calls to mind for me the realization when I started to walk into some rooms and boardrooms, that they're not quite as smart as you think they are, and they certainly aren't any smarter than you are. And I had to put myself at ease by assuming that all of these people, all of these others, kind of had something up on me. And so I really had to kind of take ownership of my place in those spaces. But Demi talks about holding on to those failures. Because it feels like sometimes my failures can be on a grand scale, on a large stage. And so I really had to learn to turn the page, go to bed, and live to fight another day. And also give myself some kudos when it comes to those big wins. Talk to the team, give them, let's have the party, let's have the celebration, let's talk about what we did right, and not put so much of my focus on what went wrong.
And so actually I'm going to go to the chat. I just checked in the chat and we have a few questions. And I think one that's really relevant for the conversation that we're having right now. And so, so Michelle is asking, how would a woman that is well into her career go about looking for an advocate sponsor to help break into the iGaming sports betting vertical as a leader? So now it's a little bit time we get a chance to workshop an opportunity for a woman. So what do you think? Fundi, I'll go to you because you're now kind of in a leadership position in sports. So what do you think? If you're kind of well into your career and you want to switch and you want to find a leadership role kind of in iGaming and sports, and I could talk to that too after.
I would love for you to talk about it, Anika, because I always say mine was purely by luck. I did not actually intend to get into the horse racing and gambling industry at all. It was through COVID, and we were working 24/7, airport operations being abnormal. And I actually just wanted to go on a sabbatical. I was like, I'm not going to suffer from a stroke or die of a heart attack. I'm too young. I just need 3 months to breathe. And I got a call from a headhunter, and the headhunter said, look, we're looking for a CEO for this company that had previously gone into business rescue. And I said, okay, I'm interested. I want to just go on a break. I'm interested. He says, it's gambling and it's horse racing. I said, no, sir, not me. You got the wrong person. Thank you very much. And he said, actually not. Would you mind having a conversation with the shareholders? And it was the shareholders' vision of wanting to buy a failed asset to change the lives of so many South Africans, because it impacted on so many livelihoods that sold me into it. So I never deliberately said I'm getting into sports betting, horse racing, and gaming. And so I just say, by the grace of God, that's how I've made it this far. But it was never a deliberate decision. And well, here I am.
Anika,
go ahead.
Anika, I would add that perhaps advocate and sponsor might be a little premature. Maybe contacts in the industry first, and that, our various conferences and groups that exist really probably is step one. And also figuring out what you're doing now, what those skills are now, and how they could align with what's going on in the industry. It depends on what you want to do in the iGaming, sports betting space. So I would say the contacts and familiarizing yourself with the industry and what exists within the industry before the advocate and sponsor route is taken.
No, I mean, absolutely. I think for iGaming and sports betting, the great for me, kind of gatekeeping secret is that most of the skills that people have are transferable. A lot of it, it's hidden with the terminology, et cetera, but many of the skills are very transferable. And to your point, it's going to the conferences. There's SBC coming up in May. That's a great conference to attend. And then I think reaching out. So Sue Snyder is an amazing advocate. She's been an advocate for African Americans gaming. She's been an advocate for me. It's a good resource to get plugged in and connected. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I definitely can kind of spend some time and talk about here's the journey, here are opportunities, here are things that you should do to prepare yourself, with kind of understanding the terminology and what's going on in the industry and where the opportunities are. So I think that the first part is exactly that, raising your hand and saying, hey, I'm interested, and I'm connecting with people that can tell you and guide you in the right direction, and then advocate for you kind of once you have the vision of, okay, this is specifically what I want to go, where I want to be as part of this. And with that, I'm going to go back to our last question, and we might have time for one more, but because I feel like this is a question I wanted to know, and it's a good way to wrap, but since we have just under 15 minutes, and it's, what do you want your legacy to be? And Demi, I'm going to start with you.
I want my legacy to be, I want to be thoughtful about it. So what I want my legacy to be is how I have hopefully helped and changed folks, and how I've been impactful in any aspects of my life, my friends, my family, the folks that I work with, my colleagues. I want to always make sure that if there is something that I can do to help, that they know that there's a safe space with me. If I don't have the answers, I don't know the answers, I have a network of folks that I'm always tagging someone in to give me an answer. That's what I want my legacy to be. Like, I want to be impactful, and I want to make sure that I'm making a difference and being the change.
Yes. Rose.
So I think about, it's unfortunate, but I have had to attend several funerals here within the past, in the space of the past couple of months, and it really causes you to be very introspective. And as I look at the loss that I've experienced with these friends and family, I look at their impact, and it really is about being a champion, a supporter, an advocate, a cheerleader for those in my community. And I'm hoping that when I'm no longer here, that is the one phrase or sentence that someone can stand up and say she was here for me. She was in my corner.
Yeah. No, I also like what both Demi and Rose have said. I think mine is to really leave a legacy of somebody that has challenged the status quo. And not just challenge the status quo by bullying or being, what's the word that they love using for us? Aggressive. But assertively, but with a certain amount of gentleness, humility, kindness, and compassion. Because I think sometimes people think that, women that have made it this far in life, we've got a lot more testosterone than other women, which is incorrect. And I really would just love to know that people, that I'm also opening up the road for behind, equally like the women that have carried me ahead, and that we just keep on paying it back. And that really would be my legacy, challenging the status quo and leaving the world a better place.
Love it all. Love it all. So I think looking, there have been a series, like a couple of questions, and it's very fitting because this is Problem Gambling Awareness Month too, to just talk a little bit about problem gaming, responsible gaming, sustainable play. Like, what are the things that your organizations and you personally are doing to make sure that their harm reductions and their resources, or if someone is struggling with addiction, and what are the things that you do to promote access to help?
I'm happy to talk about that just briefly for our organization. We give partially fund the problem gaming efforts at the state level here in Louisiana. And so we've got an inpatient facility in Louisiana for problem gaming, which is very unusual. And so I know part of the money that we contribute to the state goes toward those efforts. We're very intentional in our advertising. We don't participate in some of the games or the verbiage that revolves around, quit your job, change your life with, win the lottery, and, all your problems are going to be over. We position our product as an entertainment product, but are very careful about staying away from that language and that terminology that promotes, kind of the mindless, the mindless spending on lottery dollars. And then, of course, we do participate in Problem Gambling Awareness Month, and throughout advertising and promoting the month and the efforts and how you are responsible in your spend, and on social media, et cetera.
Oh, absolutely. Fundi, Demi, before we kind of move on, I just want to know if there's anything else you wanted to add.
I would echo the same. Sorry. I would echo the same sentiments as Rose. I mean, we are positioned, we're an entertainment destination here. So it's very intentional with our advertising as well. We have resources, like every single employee on my property knows exactly where to find it, where to get it, how to help the player, how to have those conversations. And I think those are important. The training of that is important. But also this is entertainment. This is for fun. If it's anything less than that, then we're going to help you make other choices.
Yeah. And nothing different. We've also got what we call the Responsible Gaming Association, which we fund. But equally, I think what we do as For Racing is also just try and position ourselves as really, we also aim to improve the communities in which we touch and that touch our products, right? So where we are, where the tracks are, what are we doing around those communities to also give back? I think a lot of us do that. I know that lotteries do that. A lot of our organizations do that. So it's not necessarily us always taking from the customer or from the punter, but equally we have an equal responsibility to make sure that we change the lives of the communities around us. So it's always a good balance, but all the time you've got to just make sure that the checks and balances are there for the punter that could potentially be getting out of hand in terms of an addiction problem. So yeah, but still a long way to go. But yeah, we're doing our bit.
No, and I'll chime in with Wonder Nation. And so it's very similar. We look at it from a three-pronged approach. So prevention. So especially since we are focused on online gaming and entertainment, and from online sports betting, social casino, part of it is education. So what are the things that you can do to promote self-gaming practices and education and those guardrails before it becomes a problem? So as we have this expansion of gaming, what are the things that we can both proactively do to make sure that players have, maintain a budget and play responsibly? The next part of it is, like you said, contributions. Like, what are the things that we're doing to contribute to the organizations and treatment centers and prevention centers that are already involved and very focused on that. So, for example, in Connecticut, we are partnered with Connecticut Council of Problem Gaming and a lot of the Better Choice treatment centers. And so in addition to, the prevention and problem gaming, really working to make sure that people understand and know where they can get treatment and where they can do that. And then the final part is advocacy and participation. So being an active participant with some of these organizations and understanding what are some of the things that we do, especially from a research perspective. Like we're working with the University of Connecticut Foundation and looking to understand like where are the gaps between what research that we have now and things that we can do from a technology standpoint to help promote and sustainable and responsible play. So, and I think these are things that lots of organizations are doing, and I feel like there is a concerted effort in the industry to do that. And we have 5 minutes to spare, and so I know the topic and of the theme of Women History Month is women who advocate for equity, diversity, inclusion. And there have been a couple of comments just around what do we think that can be done to kind of further this, and kind of do we feel like, once again, this is lip service, or like what are kind of some actionable things that we can do so that 10 years from now we're not having the same conversation? What do you think?
Well, in the lottery industry, I struggle with this because I feel like I'm a team of one, and certainly the broken record. But I'm willing to be the broken record because that's what's going to be necessary. And if there's one, then perhaps there's two and three that can come forward. And so I have these conversations, and they're really uncomfortable conversations with the leadership of the major gaming vendors in the lottery space. Where are your leaders who look like me? You can't tell me that there are not people of color who can be leaders in these multinational corporations. In the industry, sometimes you've got governors that appoint some lottery directors. That's not the situation in Louisiana. So certainly I can't have an impact on, that election, and therefore bringing to the forefront some people who can become leaders in lottery organizations. But in these companies, I think it's really necessary to continue to press them to open themselves up to do a better job of hiring and promoting and mentoring next generation leaders who look more like our players and like our countries.
Yeah. No, I fully agree with Rose. I think for me, it's also a 2 or 3 pronged approach. So what is it that I can personally do? And, that's within my power. And that's to advocate, mentor, sponsor, but be deliberate about the culture within the organization that I lead in being tolerant and being diverse and really just welcoming of different cultures. I think that's one. 2, at a government level, because I guess our government structure is slightly different, to keep on influencing government to start to see that when we shouldn't just be chasing a numbers game. We shouldn't just be ticking the boxes just because it looks right. How do we make it sustainable, and how do we actually make a real change where people feel that they can come into an organization and industry, belong, stay, grow, and bring in others? So I think there's lots of communication and conversations that need to be had with our own government. But I think 3, Rose, you're spot on. Today we came in as individuals, but what I like is this conversation has linked us up around the world. So it's 4 women sitting in this panel who are one individual in their particular context. But now there's actually 4 of us, and together we can try and move forward and do more. So I will want to one day reach out to you ladies to say, experiencing this, what do you think? Can you even help? One day, maybe I hop on a plane, come across, and we have these conversations from a South African perspective. And it really is about how do we, around the globe, put our efforts together and just work together to just keep on fighting this battle.
Yeah, I agree. I think that one of the things in the conversation right now, this very platform, like you said, right, we're celebrating women in gaming. There are a lot of us, so visibility is also very important to be able to see, like, Fundi, you're a pilot. Ms. Rose, you ladies are CEOs and presidents. Like, this is what it's about. This is what it looks like, right? What it looks like in gaming, what it's going to continue to grow in. I am like in awe of what I'm seeing on my screen right now. And I know there's some of that out there. So a lot of it is also visibility.
No, I mean, I think that's kind of perfect. I mean, because we're right at time. So perfect way to end the perfect sentiment. So thank you, Demi. Thank you all for joining today's webinar, Celebrating Women in Gaming. A very special thanks to the American Gaming Association and Bally's to make it possible. And I have to shout out to Kim Barker-Lee and her VP of Global Responsible Gaming, Tammy Barlow, and also Wonder Nation's Vice President of Marketing Strategy and Operations, Deani Marvel, who did a lot of the prep and work behind the scenes to make this possible. So thank you all very much for joining, and I look forward to having further conversations with this amazing group of women and just continuing this conversation beyond today's webinar. Thank you very much for everyone for joining.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.